And so it begins. Theresa May to create new internet that would be controlled and regulated by government. Okay. We will put a responsibility on industry not to direct users, even unintentionally, to hate speech, pornography or other sources of harm, the Conservatives write. Okay. Well, they've not done a very good job of protecting us from sources of harm, have they? Because you've only got to look at this lot, haven't you? The gutter press. You've only got to look at them. The sources of harm and hate. Slash benefits for EU migrants. From a press, okay, wants everybody to focus on EU migrants, but let's ignore the fact that corporations, global security firm that incarcerates Palestinian children, okay, is G4S running our children's homes, getting £200,000 a year for every child in their care, out of the public purse. All the subsidies and tax breaks and bonuses that have been given to bankers and the corporations. We won't think about those, will we? No, instead, we'll slash school meals. We'll deny school meals to 900,000 struggling families, working families, whose standard of living and wages are so low that they're forced to queue up, working people are forced to queue up at food banks. They can't afford to feed the children. And that's not extremism. Well, it was just exactly this type of extremism, that type of extremism, that forced working people to be having to beg for food, is the reason why post-war Britain established the welfare state. And we weren't hardline, were we? You know, we had nationalised industries, nationalised services, social housing, social security, pension schemes, workers' rights, an NHS, education, and then on the other hand we also had private businesses, private healthcare, private education. Because it was balanced, there was a balance, and that balance has been destroyed by the extremist political system that we failed to recognise at the time, but now we need to recognise it for what it is. This political system where people think that we can choose the right or the left or the middle without being crippled no matter which way we go about it. The only difference is that if the left hand's cut off, then the people who are right-handed are going to find life a lot easier, even though they're crippled, because at least they can use the right hand with proficiency. Or let's chop the right hand off, and then we'll still all be crippled, but the left-handed people will have an advantage, won't they? Or why don't we just chop both arms off and just live by the middle? This is extremism. The divisions that, you know, the gutter press have promoted. This is the kind of shite, the titty brains, toddler mentality. That's what they've reduced the British public to, the level of the toddler mentality. Bitty, come and drink the filth from the corporate bitty. Okay, but it's not just these. It's not just these. Oh, no. Right, Guardian. Supposedly left. Supposedly in support of the British people. But the covert narcissists. Okay, because these spread hate and lies in a very underhand way. And they're actually a lot more dangerous. Okay, because the so-called intelligentsia of Britain, like to buy the Guardian, they stay away from gutter press. They buy the Guardian because they trust the Guardian. Guardian's not gutter press. Well, I've got news for you. It is. It's gutter press. See this sentence here, and please wake up. The changes that affected Mohan introduced external assessment of disability claimants rather than self-assessment, and introduced more stringent eligibility criteria. With that one sentence, The Guardian have undermined everything that they claim to be supporting in this article. What they're saying to the intelligent, so-called intelligent people of Britain, the professionals who commonly will buy The Guardian, they're telling them that previously she was only getting DLA because she was on a self-assessment, but now she's had an external assessment. She's no longer eligible. When in fact the only thing that they've done is introduce more stringent eligibility criteria. That's the only thing they've done. Because I can tell you for a fact, because I have helped people claim DLA, I've helped disabled people with their forms. And this was long before ATOS. And there was absolutely no way that anybody ever got DLA on a self-assessment. It always has to be supported by doctors and other healthcare professionals or social workers. Nobody ever received DLA on a self-assessment. So Guardian, that is an absolute lie. You're liars, and you are part of the gutter press. You're a corporate media, corporately controlled, and you use your credibility, you abuse your credibility to promote lies. Oh, you don't do it as blatantly as this lot, okay? No, no, no. You do it covertly. And that makes you even more evil. Because at least this lot, okay, titty brains, bitty, give me some filth to drink, feed me hate, because I'm feeling angry and upset, I need somebody to take it out on, okay? No, no, you do it very covertly, don't you, very smoothly, you know, just casually drop in an absolute outright lie, because this woman was not receiving DLA because she'd done a self-assessment. And you see, while she's going on about extremism, her government, the entire parliament, are extreme enough to ignore the laws of physics. The laws of physics, the evidence staring everybody in the face that 9/11 was a controlled demolition, pre-planned event, and the very fact that you've all swallowed the official conspiracy theory, the lie, and used it to justify your own Parliament's own involvement in illegally invading a nation on the strength of a pack of lies, demolishing it and littering it with depleted uranium, and then leaving ISIS in control. And we, the British people, are paying a debt for the costs of all of that. And we're paying it by slashing free school meals to impoverished children. We're paying for it by slashing the benefits of disabled people. She doesn't think it's extreme. Don't the British people think it's extreme to have a government that is going to deny, scrap our human rights? And what do you think is going to happen when your human rights are scrapped? Okay, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? DynCorp, a global security firm, they're in the UK. They work privately, they work on a contract They get contracted by governments, paid for by public funding. So once they've slashed your human rights, and they brought in the banking and building society bailing, and they're taking your homes and your savings out of your banks, and you've got no human rights and you get out on the streets, this is who you're going to be facing. DynCorp. And that's not extremist. It's not extremist for our government to invite a global security firm into Britain. A military global security firm that gets contracted out. That gets contracted by governments to restore peace and stability for whoever's paying them. Regardless of what people are actually standing up for. If the people who pay them don't like what the people are standing up for, then they will make sure that those people are silenced. And they do get supported. They do get contracted. They work for governments. And we've got a corporate government with its corporate press, its corporate media like the BBC, who, you know, love to show us images of ISIS. You know, this is what the BBC show us, isn't it? That is what we get off the BBC about Islam. Okay? They never bring us any news about people like him, do they? Who's being persecuted in Iran. Because he stands up for human rights and he supports women's rights. Because he's a true Muslim. Oh, no, no, no. They don't want people to know the true face of Islam, do they? They want us to believe in their cartoon characters. They want us to believe in the terrorist groups that they have funded, that the people she supports and who support her, they have funded, the banks have funded and created all these terrorists and armed them. Where do you think they get a rocket launcher from? Where do they get these rocket launchers from? Where do they get their weapons from? Who is providing their bullets? Because they're not being made in Iraq, are they? No, what's being manufactured in Iraq right now by ISIS are chemical weapons. The very thing that we were told was in Iraq and actually wasn't in Iraq, now is in Iraq. And we know for a fact that they've been using those chemical weapons in Syria, ISIS. Oh, but we're extremists to talk about 9/11, you know, to uphold the laws of physics, to stand by the laws of physics. Apparently that's extremists. And you know, people like my granddad gave their lives in World War II. And families like mine, you know, we have suffered as a direct result of the loss of the family figurehead. What happened to my mum and subsequently happened to her children, directly the result of having no father to protect her. And after post-war Britain, people said, no, sorry, we're not going back to that. We're not going back to this system where we have to watch our children die because we can't afford a doctor. Where we get used and abused. We get used and then thrown on the scrap heap at the employer's whim. And that's why we established Social Security, because it was the basic income, and employers had to pay people above subsistence level living, because otherwise people are just slaves, and they will drive the workforce down to the level where the children are having to get free school meals, or else it's queuing up outside a food bank. And that is why Social Security was established. Because we used to have common lands That was our social security, and they removed those, and that's what it was all about. It's all right then. You've removed our right to subsist by growing our own food and having some livestock on our common lands. And if you're not going to provide it physically, you're going to provide it economically, because this planet does owe life a living. And the whole idea of a leader is not to be voting for the left or voting for the right or voting for the middle. No. You need leaders that are going to serve the whole body, who uphold the law, who don't ignore justice to children, who deliver justice to children. These people think it's not extremists to cover up serious crimes against children being committed by people in positions of power and authority. That's not extremism. To give a paedophile a suspended sentence and even still allow that person, as the judge said, to work with people under the age of 16. This was a man, gardener from Camden, a Catholic friar in 2014. He had 10,000 indecent images of children. Some of them he'd made himself. They were so bad that people in the court were crying. And he got a suspended sentence by our courts. And you think that's not extremism? You think it's not extremism to ignore true Muslims, to support and promote true Islam? People like this man, Ayatollah Boroujerdi. That isn't extremism to ignore him and to promote ISIS. Well, I'm going to support these, and I'll have to ask somebody to donate on my behalf, because I still can't use my card online. I cannot buy anything online. The banks can't explain why. There's nobody to contact online to find out why. It's just one of the covert ways that people who are challenging this system do get oppressed in this society. But I do advise people to support them, because, you see, banning things isn't the way, is it? The way is to just stop supporting. That is the way, is to turn our backs No, sorry, we don't want your filthy titty. We don't want to drink your filthy titty. Filthy bitty filth. Okay, we don't want your bitty filth. We're not toddlers. We're intelligent human beings. We understand the laws of physics, Theresa May. And that is why our society is so in such a terrible state. That's why the whole world is in a terrible state. Because we're being governed by the kind of people who credibly can ignore the laws of physics, cling on to a pack of lies and murder people on the strength of it, and still consider themselves upright, respectable people. Who she can look herself in the mirror knowing that she's going to be denying food to 900,000 British children. That people like this lady are going to have their income slashed by 2/3. So global corporations could come in and vamp off the British people. You know, they've got global corporations providing school meals. The fact our children need to eat. That there's poor children in Britain. That children in British schools need to eat. Should be paying a global corporation money. And that is exactly why men like, you know, the people of post-war Britain did set up the welfare state. And we did not set up a communist form of system, did we? We had nationalised industry, and education, social security, NHS, social housing, nationalised services, and at the same time private healthcare, private education. It was balanced. There was a balance. But that balance was destroyed because it was always under threat just by the very fact that they'd persuaded us all, indoctrinated us all to believe that politics was about dividing ourselves up between right, left and middle. And they were able to do that because most of the people, don't forget, the average British working man did not even have a vote until the 1920s. Remember that. We're a very young political nation as far as the working people go. And by the time post-war Britain, when even women were granted the right to vote, you know, they'd already established a system that we didn't know any better to question. Well, now we do know better. We know that we cannot live by crippling ourselves, by voting to cripple ourselves. So, Theresa May, your extremist days are over. Okay, the party time, the party is over. All you politicians, you've all been having a lovely party, haven't you? With your expenses and your, how many wage rises have you had in the last 5 years? Well, 50,000 plus British people have been driven to early death and suicide. And I'm not just talking about benefits claimants either. I'm talking about people who are suddenly made redundant. People who are suddenly working on 0-hour contracts and suddenly being told that, oh no, sorry, we don't need you for the next 2 weeks. Go and queue up at a food bank. Overstressed, overworked NHS staff. People suddenly being evicted from the homes. And you think that's not extremist? And so, you know, your party's over. The party's over. And you think you're going to scrap our human rights? Well, you've got another thing coming. Okay? You've got another thing coming. And no, you are not going to be bringing in DynCorp to protect you. Because you are not going to scrap our human rights. Because I tell you now, there will be a revolution in this country before you even dare to even try to scrap our human rights. Because those rights are what we, the people, sacrificed our own flesh and blood for. Those rights and you are never going to take them away. And you have the audacity to talk to us about extremism, and you want to remove our human rights. I'm sorry, lady. You're living in cloud cuckoo land.